Death is swept under the carpet in the hospital. They try to keep you alive utter desperation. They won't take the mockery. Well, of course, we've made death howl with all kinds of ghouls. We've invented dreadful afterlives. I mean, the Christian version of heaven is as abominable as the Christian version of hell. Nobody wants to be in church forever. try to keep you alive with utter desperation. They won't know the mockery. Well, of course, we've made death howl with all kinds of ghouls. We've invented dreadful afterlives. I mean, the Christian version of heaven is as abominable as the Christian version of hell. Nobody in church forever. think about. Death is swept under the carpet in our culture. In the hospital, they try to keep you alive from utter desperation. They won't take to know the mockery. Well, of course, we've made death howl with all kinds of ghouls. We've invented dreadful afterlives. I mean, the Christian version of heaven is as abominable as the Christian version of hell. Nobody wants to be in church forever.
Me and Kyle have been together for 8 years. Been poly the whole time, okay? Me and Kyle are in a triad with Kit. We have been together, the three of us, for 3 years. We have one child together, and she's 5. Oh, we don't show the kids on TikTok, though. Okay, so me and Kyle, and Kyle, and Kit, we're triad, okay? Okay. Now, me and Sam and Kit and Katie met around the same time. I started dating Sam, and Kit started dating Katie around the same time. My dogs are going crazy. Okay, so I started dating Sam, Kit started dating Katie, and then just about a little over a month ago, we moved everyone in together. So everyone lives in the same house now. We all live together. Also, I should have definitely done this at the beginning, but pronouns, mine are she, her, he, him, they, them, they, he, and Kyle's are he, him.
Well, Clint, he, them's relationship status just got a lot more complicated. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Rudowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com. As of course, we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the crazy news happening right now. As of course, a lot of people are discussing the current situation in Moscow, Russia, with Tucker Carlson, who was just there on site and is confirmed to have interviewed Vladimir Putin, which everyone is losing their ish to. There's a lot of news about cyber attacks, infrastructure attacks. Gina Carano and Elon Musk are suing Twitter. What in the world is going on here? Well, we're going to be talking about that plus a lot more, all for the next 2 hours. So make sure to share this broadcast with your friends and family members, as of course YouTube hasn't been that favorable to us, but it's really up to you to get thebestpoliticalshow.com out there to your friends and family members. And it's one of the reasons why we have such a big audience, and it's people independently sharing it. So thank you again for doing that. You guys get to also participate in this conversation by signing up to, of course, lukeunfiltered.com. You could sign up for less than $8 a month, and then by doing so, you get access to a lot of really incredible things. And one of the best things is being able to call into the show, as today, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, we will be taking your phone calls. You could ask us, show us whatever you want. And another way that you could participate is, of course, through Rumble rants or super chats. But even better is mysuperchat.com, where your text actually shows up on screen. We will be reading any and all super chats during this 2-hour broadcast, and we can't thank you enough for your support with this independent media organization that has really cool, awesome people in studio like Conservative Ant. Conservative Ant, who are you? How would you introduce yourself? And thank you so much for coming down.
Yep, thanks for having me. I am a social media comedian, I guess. I don't know. All things politics, basically. I kind of put my twist on it. And yeah, I give you facts with jokes and personalities, I guess.
Which I think is more important than ever. I had a friend visiting, and they're like, "You got to get Conservative Ann on. We got to get." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. You live close by, so it's awesome to have you here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Really a pleasure." Clint is also here. Clint, with the complicated relationship status.
Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough when you have your polycule. It grows, it expands upon itself. You can't even remember like how it began. It's just tough. It's tough out here. But I want to enjoy. I want to offer the audience. Let's dine. Let's have libations of corporate media tears as Tucker Carlson has decided to interview the modern day. I can't even say the word.
You can't even say the word.
I'll save it. I'll save it for later.
You could say the modern day leader of Germany with the funny stash in the 1930s. You can say it that way.
Luke gets the reference I'm going for, and I think you do too. Anyways, Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, co-host of Tower Gang, and co-host of The Best Political Show, which, by the way, you should pick up your phone right now, and you should go to your podcatcher, and you should enter in both Liberty Lockdown and The Best Political Show, and you should subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. We got Steph on the buttons.
Steph, who's going to be talking a lot today, right, Steph?
Yeah, my name is Steph. WeAreChange. Excited to be here.
All right, let's get into the first story, and that, of course, is Tucker Carlson that everyone is talking about right now. As just scrolling through my Twitter feed, this is the first video that came up from Taylor Day saying, "This is when Tucker Carlson lands back in America." That, of course, is not when Tucker Carlson lands in America. That's when the Nephilim and Clint's family landed in Miami Mall, and then had one of the biggest police presence in, I think, just recent history. As, of course, a lot of people are now talking about the interview that a lot of people are saying is going to be breaking the internet, as it is now officially confirmed. Tucker Carlson did have a sit-down interview with the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the responses from this are very telling. Some people are saying this is the best thing ever. This is going to be incredible. This is going to be the biggest, most watched video on the internet ever. And then you have some people trying to desperately hold on to the narrative, hold on to the discourse, saying this is the worst thing ever. automatically ban Tucker Carlson from coming back into this country. He's a traitor. How dare he talk to the enemy? As already there's a lot of memes, there's a lot of attacks, there's a lot of people, including even Alex Jones, who came out today and said, hey, Tucker, before getting on any flights, make sure you release this interview. As, of course, a lot of people are expecting a lot of major bombshells to be released. What do you guys make of this latest news, and what do you think is going to be coming out from this larger interview?
Honestly, I think that, it's never a bad thing when you want to talk to somebody that everybody really wishes they can talk to, I guess. And who better than Tucker Carlson? He'll go there, he'll ask the questions. I think we kind of, I don't know, I feel like I needed to hear something from Putin. Something. We don't know anything. So blackout isn't good either. It's not a bad thing to listen to what he has to say, whether you want to take it and believe what he has to say or like him. Nobody's telling you to like him or not.
Well, that's the most insulting part about all this is that there's this new narrative. I don't think this really ever existed when I was growing up, but it seems to be very pervasive at this point, that if you hear from someone who has been deemed to be the enemy, that is enough, that it should be shamed, it should be censored, it should be suppressed. I couldn't disagree more with that assessment. I think that we have a long history of American journalists sitting down with Osama bin Laden, Putin himself, many times. Many leaders all over the world that are considered to be evil or whatever. This is not like. The audience has the capacity for discernment, and if we don't have that at this point, well, that's more of a condemnation of our public school system than anything else, as far as I'm concerned. 2.5 years ago, NBC interviewed Putin. It wasn't a big deal. Many corporate media personalities interviewed Putin. But I think there's such a scandal surrounding this. There's such an energy around this. It's predominantly because Tucker Carlson's no longer in the club. He's not in the corporate media. Bingo.
He doesn't have a big major network controlling him. He's essentially independent media, posting on Twitter, posting something that, of course, is going to be out of the reins of control of corporate media. And I think that's why they're losing their ish, because we could really find out some stuff that we were denied access to for a very long time, and that could be very detrimental to a lot of powerful people.
Yeah, well, that was Tucker's whole point when he put out that message today. He was like, listen, we are basically like, this is stuff that we need to hear, and then you can base your own decision off of it. I don't see anything wrong with that. And the reason why they don't want him to, because he's like the most listened to dude right now, I feel, ever.
Well, and he's also not going to edit. I don't think they're going to edit the interview down at all. I think they're just going to put it out whole.
He said he's going to release it. We have some of his statements that we're going to be playing in a little bit. He was actually confronted by a Russian reporter asking him about the interview with Putin. And very interestingly, he had this to say.
Can I ask you about your interview with Putin?
With who?
With Putin.
I've heard the name, but
With our President Putin.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, but I can't say his name.
Playing dumb here, but of course his true statement was released on Twitter, where he released a 4-minute and 28-minute response to a lot of the criticism, a lot of the hatred that he's been getting after, of course, a lot of people put the pieces together, and he officially today announced and confirmed, yes, this interview is happening, and it's going to be released on tuckercarlson.com, and then later on released on Twitter, where he said Elon Musk personally promised him not to delete this interview. So already, Tucker Carlson is coming from a perspective that this interview is going to probably be censored. It's probably going to be deleted, as, of course, the establishment, the intelligence agencies, essentially pull the strings of big tech social media, and they have nerfed and destroyed a lot of very important stories that we can't probably even bring up and remind you here today on YouTube. We could do it in 1 hour on Rumble, but there's an origin story of some kind of weird bat thing. There's, the specific. How else can I make this analogy? There's this son of a politician that did some really awful things that we can't talk about as well. Which is absolutely ridiculous. And soon, probably, unless the censors have been activated, we probably won't be able to talk about the interview between Tucker Carlson and Putin. So far, it looks like we're okay. But if this interview is going to be as big of a bombshell as a lot of people expect it to be, there's going to be some big ramifications, and the system could respond by saying, shh, you can't talk about it, silence, sush.
But you know what? It's so great. Like, so you think of some of the biggest serial killers of our time, right? interviewed.
Yeah.
Manson, who's the guy that killed all the other guys?
Barack Obama.
Henry Kissinger.
There should be no problem with having a conversation with someone and showing it to people.
Yeah.
100%.
Bill Clinton.
Madeleine Albright.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary. Oh, that's
George
Hillary's
Bush.
But
John Ashcroft. Donald Rumsfeld.
John Bolton gets interviewed almost every day.
Yeah, that guy. I literally asked that guy. I was like, "Hey, we're drawing. My friend's drawing a painting of you, and he wants to know: do you want the blood on your hands on your left hand or your right hand?" He freaked out. He was really pissed off and angry about that. Sorry, Ant, we cut you off.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
fine. But we made movies on these people, Jeffrey Dahmer, and people like made them seem like they were murderers, and people like idolize these people, but they're fine.
Yep.
So the red flag to me is, why aren't we allowed to talk about it? And being somebody who's on Instagram and who does TikTok and stuff like that, the fact that I know if I post a clip of that, and that's going to come down for what? For misinformation? What's the misinformation? It really happened.
Well, see, but how can you
George
even...
W. Bush. George H. Bush.
Keep going. Keep going.
Dick Cheney.
But
He can go all day.
here's the reality, though. How can we possibly know what is and isn't misinformation if we're not able to actually speak and think freely?
Correct.
You can't get to the truth if we're not able to have these conversations. And let me just be very blunt without running afoul of the censorship here. I've already read many books about what's transpired between Russia and Ukraine. And let me just tell you, the reason, more than anything, the reason that they're concerned about a uncensored interview from a truly independent journalist is because their narrative is built on sand.
Yep.
It will fall apart under the softest of winds that House of Cards is coming down. So I think that's why they're panicking. They have every reason to be panicking, but it doesn't change the fact that we have First Amendment rights. We have speech rights. We have press rights. You cannot censor this. I mean, you're going to try, but we're going to keep finding ways to circumvent these apparatus.
Tony Blair. I'll keep going throughout this whole show if I have to. But here are the comments by Tucker Carlson. The video, by the way, is just going mega viral, almost as mega viral as my Chilean SWAT team analysis, but that's a different story here, as this video already has 29.2 million views.
The numbers he brings.
Within 5 hours, that's
Crazy.
incredible numbers on Twitter, where, of course, Tucker Carlson is exclusively posting on the platform. Here's what he had to say.
We're in Moscow tonight. We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways they might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. It's left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and it's depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the long-term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy.
So it looks like Tucker Carlson is hinting that this interview with Putin is going to be predominantly about foreign policy. It's predominantly going to be addressing a lot of the concerns with Ukraine, as the average American is kind of questioning, what are we doing there? What's the overall goals here? Why are we investing so much? And why are so many young people losing their lives for what? And as we saw with the Vietnam War, media and journalism has a way of ending global geopolitical conflicts. This has a lot of potential here to essentially create peace. It also has a lot of potential to go the other way and create more war and to create a more desperate situation for some individuals who, of course, want to continue this conflict and prolong it as much as they can. But I think this is groundbreaking in many ways, as I expect a lot of serious conversations to be had about our involvement in Ukraine after this interview, where hopefully, maybe there's a chance that this war could potentially end. Am I being too optimistic here, or am I being not realistic enough?
No, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Do you think that Ukraine wants that war to end, though?
I think I think people overwhelmingly want the war to end, but I think
leader, though.
Not the leadership.
Yeah.
And I think there might be even a portion of Ukrainian leadership that wants it to end too, but they can't because of the larger strings attached by the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies that are so involved there that essentially I think there's an element of them telling them what to do. And if you're in such a situation, it's not a comfortable situation to be in. Ukraine doesn't have enough manpower. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough resources. Their entire population of young men has been absolutely wiped out to the point where there's elderly people and women on the front lines that are not supposed to be there. And if you're someone like Ukraine right now, you're looking for an exit. You're looking for a way out, especially with all the developments that I've been following very closely in Bakhmut and all over Ukraine that is, again, largely a stalemate. And that conflict's not really going to be changing anytime soon.
Yeah. I don't actually think it's really a stalemate as much as I think Russia does not want to go west of the Dnieper River. I think that they've demonstrated quite clearly that this is the portion they want. They want the land bridge to Crimea. They want to protect the predominantly Russian-speaking people. That's it. They've already achieved their mission. So I think they're just basically waiting out the Ukrainians, and really not the Ukrainians, because I think Putin knows as well as anybody that this is not a negotiation between he and Zelensky. This is a negotiation between he and Antony Blinken, the State Department of the United States. That is really and just to go back to the figures that we're talking about, if that border bill, the border defense bill that they tried to shove down your throat yesterday, if that were to be passed, we're talking approximately $250 million of your dollars that have gone to the Ukrainian side of this fight. That's an astronomical sum.
No. $250 billion.
Excuse me, quarter trillion.
Yeah, 660 billion is what they wanted under the border bill,
right?
Which is again, it's a war bill. It's a military industrial complex wish list bill that essentially takes your money, indebts you, devalues the purchasing power of the dollar, and says, "Yeah, guys, here, let's give it to our friends." And some of the weapons went missing. Who knows where it went? And there's so many things about this conflict that we haven't been told about. There's so many lies when it comes to this engineering, the start of it, and this continuation of it that is just absolutely bewildering. Because if you look at the situation, if the anti-war voices, if the critics of this war were allowed to be heard, the Ukrainian people would have been better off. They would have been in a more stable situation, a more secure situation, and they wouldn't be in a situation where they have lost that much significant territory as they already have, as they're probably going to be losing a lot more with the way that the battlefield has been unfolding in that particular country. If you look at Elon Musk's plan to essentially create a ceasefire here that he proposed a couple months ago, and he was called a traitor for proposing, that's a wish list that I think many Ukrainians wish they had the option to return to, but we don't, with how just much the war has progressed and just how much the spring offensive that the corporate media kept foaming at the mouth about, being excited about, absolutely failed and didn't meet any of its goals that they told everyone they were going to reach.
I mean, keep in mind, even before this Tucker interview, it is already unpopular. The financial support, if you actually poll Democrats and Republicans, I don't think that you have a majority, and you haven't had it for quite some time. So this entire proxy war has been funded against the will of the American people. I think what this will really tell us after the Tucker interview is how bad is it, and will the audience, will the tens of millions that aren't privy to any of the stuff that most of the people in our audience are aware of already, once they know that, will the outrage become so loud that the federal government finally actually listens to us? Or have they just decided that they are no longer listening to the American people at all? And I don't know.
This could end the war. Let's just be honest. This could literally end the frickin' war. And if that happens, This is going to be one of the biggest interviews ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
deserve a
mean-
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, well, they'll never give Tucker that. But, exactly why? If we had a leader, I'm sorry, but if we had a leader that was like, "Yo, I can have a conversation with Putin. We can talk about this. Like we can. It's escalated to here. Like I think I could bring it down here." Our leader doesn't have that ability to talk to world leaders that way. They don't see him as somebody who's strong, or I don't know. That's just my opinion, maybe. But
Clearly. I mean,
Like
I
dementia
wouldn't respect
man?
him if he called me. I'd be like, no, I'm not
but
answering
see,
that.
the issue is it's not even about whether or not Biden could have that conversation.
I don't think he could even use a phone.
Right. Like,
we saw his interview today.
Yeah,
He
we're
was-
going to be playing that clip in
Yeah.
a little bit too. It's absolutely shocking.
But the issue is that it's not really the president's call. I mean, like theoretically, yes, if he was some sort of sentient being that had a conscience and a soul, he could actually intervene, perhaps. But the reality is that it's the deep state military industrial complex, State Department
And
apparatus.
I'm hearing down the
They want
pipeline that is also what's going to be a big portion of the interview between Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin,
Should
the
be.
real kind of power structure behind the United States. And we've seen Vladimir Putin make very kind of similar statements even a few years ago. I remember documenting one of the 12-hour-long press conferences that he was giving, and he specifically talked about how it's not the president of the United States that calls the shots, but it's essentially shadowy figures, men in black suits behind the scenes that no one knows about that keeps things the same in Washington, D.C., no matter who the president is. And if you examine American foreign policy, other than some small kind of deviations, it kind of usually stays the same, other than a little bit with Donald Trump, even though I have some criticisms of Donald Trump with his foreign policy. But again, no new war started, which was a new kind of surprise there. But let's get into some of the super chats and continue on with some of the comments by Tucker Carlson. Since we only played 1 minute of this, we have one super chat from Sweaty Boy saying, "Don't forget, a lot of Israeli presidents were on Jeffrey Epstein's list, yes, and prime ministers as well." Vigilant Patriot said on lists. Well, thank you for your super chat. I don't know what that means directly. We have a Rumble rant by Jay Wick saying, "Steph is a cutie. Talk, woman. What is the end game with all these affairs abroad, Luke? Is it to keep a dead U.S. dollar afloat?" Jay Wick, I think that's a small portion of it. We're going to get into the larger kind of hegemonic discussions and world power discussions in a little bit later on in this broadcast. We got another Rumble rant by And so Nicias saying the Benedict Biden doesn't negotiate with Americans. Yes, that's absolutely true. We got another super chat by Ian Slater saying, "It's a scary thought, your own government actively wants to eradicate and opens the door to a new slave class." Yes. Sweaty Boy also asks if we could interview Ryan Dawson on the podcast. I think Clint's working on that, but I think he's in Japan, and we're going to be. There's another controversial figure that we might have on the show here that's probably going to get a lot of buzz as well. But we talk to anyone and everyone, and we have real discussions here on thebestpoliticalshow.com. We got another one here by I'm Not Your Buddy Guy saying it unravels a deep state plot to frame MAGA. He also said, quote, "I hope more people follow the J6 pipe bomb story." Yeah, that's another kind of big story here that has sadly been underreported. We got another super chat by Richard Boner. Of course, that's not his name. I'm making it YouTube friendly. Richard Boner said, "How great would it be if Tucker went all the way to Moscow just to post a 2-minute video of Russian ladies of the night relieving their bowels on your mama's bed? Neo-commies and neo-libs would be speechless." Thank you, Richard Boner, for such a classy Rumble rant. We appreciate all your super chats and Rumble rants that continue this independent media operation, no matter how absurd or esoteric. Here is, go ahead, Clint.
Yeah, I just want to take it back a little bit to like why this is such a big, I don't know, like knot to unwind. You actually there was a false FBI affidavit that was filed in 2015 to be able to spy via Carter Page on the Trump campaign at the time, before he was even the president. Then you have the Steele dossier that comes out that tries to paint Trump as some sort of sexual degenerate, that he's doing all sorts of crazy things with hookers in Moscow. All of this is predicated off of lies. All of this is funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So then you have him get impeached for his discussions with Ukrainian leadership. You have the entire Ukraine gate nonsense. You have the entire Russia gate nonsense. All of this is all potentially unwound with one sit-down conversation with Vladimir Putin, and that is catastrophic for the narrative cultivators in our country.
Here's what Tucker Carlson had else to say.
The post-World War II economic order, the system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast, and along with it, the dominance of the U.S. dollar. These are not small changes. They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they have done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people.
And it's pretty hilarious that it's those same kind of propagandists that are saying that Tucker Carlson is the propagandist, as he's giving us an insight and a perspective that's going to be unedited, and from what I'm learning is going to be a 2+ hour conversation that is definitely probably going to be focusing on a lot of important issues that the American people have been denied the access and ability to understand for a very long time.
And you know what? At a time right now that Americans don't know what they're going to do for their next paycheck, meal, rent, all that stuff, they really don't care what's happening in Ukraine. I'm sorry. They don't care where their money's going. They care where their money's going. It's not going into their pockets. They don't care about everything that's going on in other countries. But Tucker is willing to have these conversations and open up about these things so that we can get an instance. It's like you go, somebody just takes money off your bank account and you're like, okay, what'd you buy? And we're like, I don't know. And you're like, yeah, but can I at least see what you bought? Is it cool? So he's kind of just giving Americans this is what we want. We want to see what's going on over there. If you're going to take all of our money and I have no money, I want to know where the money's going. And don't bring this guy over here. Don't bring this guy with his green sweater over here to talk to us about how he needs more of it. Like, no, dude, we're
Zelensky.
good.
Yeah. At least show us the receipts. At least show us where the money's going. At least show us some kind of larger effects here. And we don't have any of that. We have so much disinformation, so much propaganda. And I would love to see an interview. And I think it's only fair for Vladimir Zelensky now to sit down with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson made a very smart and wise move here because now he's opening up the door for the people who listen to Tucker Carlson to listen to Vladimir Zelensky. This is Vladimir Zelensky might take him up on this challenge. I hope he does, to open up this discourse, as I think I've been calling for this for a very long time. There needs to be more communication. There needs to be more detente. There needs to be more resolutions towards these conflicts, as of course conversation between Russia and the United States has been very poor. It hasn't been substantive. It hasn't led to any kind of peace discussions that have been usurped and screwed over by Western powers and Western politicians that deliberately are continuing this war and this conflict when all sides a couple months ago agreed to sit at the table. They said, hey, we'll negotiate. We'll end this war. We'll end this conflict. Boris frickin' Johnson and his crazy-haired lunatic neoconservative sociopathic policies literally interjected and said, no, Vladimir, you're not going to be negotiating with Vladimir. Vladimir also said he's not going to negotiate with Putin at all. But I think it's fair to say with so many things on the line, and more specifically, the economic outlook for America, especially with the petrodollar, especially with what's happening to average Americans who are struggling to make it by, this makes more sense than ever. And I think this is why a lot of people are paying such close attention to this frickin' interview. interview.
And mind you, it's not a couple months ago. It was almost 2 years ago that Antony Blinken just waylaid that entire peace negotiation process through his proxy of Boris Johnson. It's absolutely awful. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million casualties on both sides of that war that probably would have been avoided had a peace negotiation been had in that junction. It's criminal beyond belief that they would do that, and then they rob the American people. This is where it gets really insulting, though. They had Vladimir Zelensky fly in and go on the House floor, our House of Representatives. They hold up a Ukrainian flag in front of the Speaker of the House. I mean, how is it that we can't at least hear the counter narrative? We can't even hear from the leader of the other side of this fight as we're arming and funding. And keep in mind too, we're talking about the two largest nuclear powers on the planet, the United States and Russia. You don't want to have open lines of communication between those two nations? Have you lost your effing mind? It's totally suicidal.
And that's why I think that, I know that if that were Donald Trump, if this was going on and Donald Trump was there, he would have been like, yo, why don't you come to Mar-a-Lago? Dude, like, seriously, like, Putin, come to Mar-a-Lago. Like, let's talk about this. You know what I'm saying? I get it. The leader doesn't make the shots, but he can at least woo him a little bit and be like, yo, like, let's not.
Well, in fairness, I think that Donald Trump really does want to have a good relationship with Putin. He's talked like that forever, but then he has also, in my opinion, been once again kind of duped because he bragged about how the Obama administration would not send munitions to Ukraine.
Lethal weapons specifically.
Right.
And it was the Trump administration that was the one that first broke this larger deal and sent weapons to Ukraine.
Yeah, Trump was like, Obama would only send blankets and pillows. Well, I sent weapons because, we're playing hardball here. It's like this has been a proxy war between the United States and Russia for a decade. People don't even understand. This is not, Russia may have invaded 2 years ago, but this started a decade ago. And people don't know the history because we're not alled to, because there's a total media blackout from one side. And it's just evil, man.
Yeah, I don't know if Putin would go to Mar-a-Lago. He's known for being a germaphobe and someone who's extremely paranoid. If you look at the pictures 3 years ago when there was a thing going around that we can't talk about that was engineered, also with the help of the CIA and other individuals that were working for Peter Daszak and Eco Health Alliance. When that was happening, you always saw photos of like these enormously like clown-like tables and him sitting all the way at one side of it, and then everyone else sitting on the other side. And then security really gets pissed off when anyone kind of touches him as well. So he's super paranoid. But I think I think Trump's policies, let's just be honest here, weren't the best, but better than anyone else that was president in our lifetime. And
policies on Ukraine?
No, just foreign policy in general. I think it's foreign policy. Out of all the presidents that we ever had in our current day, his was the best. Was it good? No. But that doesn't say a lot in my perspective, in my opinion, as of course there's a lot of other things happening behind the scenes that we have no idea about. Mm-hmm. So I think there was also a lot of people talking about how Trump would just essentially scare the crap out of a lot of world leaders by being unpredictable and essentially saying that he was going to nuke everyone. And that was one of his kind of detente policies that some people say was a brilliant move because it freaked out a lot of people who didn't know what he was going to do, and therefore it kind of put a lot of the bigger world leaders in check. I think a lot of his trade protection policies with China were brilliant, and I think those were the best policies that he implemented. But as far as like the Middle East, I think the intelligence agencies still had a lot of control. And then when we kind of look at this, it's essentially the intelligence agencies that always need a war, whether it's for human trafficking purposes or drug purposes, whatever it is. They always need something because Afghanistan ended, and when Afghanistan ended, they're like, "Crap, we need an excuse. We need a way to funnel all the money. We need, we need the babies. We got to bring in the babies for what that we can't mention here on YouTube. They got to go on that island that we can't talk about here on YouTube. And I really do think they're going to be doing everything in their power to prolong this conflict, to continue this conflict. And sadly, the people who are paying the biggest price for it are young Ukrainian men And young Ukrainian men who have a lot of money, who are connected with the politicians, they don't go to the front lines. They don't get drafted. It's the poor people in Ukraine. It's also the poor people in Russia, the poor soldiers who are also conscripted, who are also told, hey, you're going to go and fight now, and you're going to fight essentially your neighbor, people who look exactly like you, people who may be related to you, and you're supposed to take their life all because of the wishes of some kind of politician, which I think is absolutely idiotic no matter what side you're on.
Yeah, and what about, when this whole thing popped off, they Netflix like cut off every subscription from Russia and like all these different places. I was like, what if I was just a normal Russian citizen? What did I have to do with this? Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like,
you might not even support Putin.
Correct.
You know?
Which
a lot don't.
Yeah. And so it's sad that it has to go to that point. And there's a lot of innocent people on both ends of this that are affected, like you said. And, I do think of the Russian people too, because some of them can't leave. Some of them want to leave, but they're affected financially. They're affected monetarily as well. So it's an all around crazy situation to wrap your mind around.
Like, do they get radicalized? Are they actually going to be like, man, I want my Netflix back. Fuck America.
Well, I think the
Steph, for French language here.
Yes. We're on YouTube. Come on.
But I just wanted to make the point. We do have to call out the situation as honestly as we can, because there's a lot of other people who are saying Putin's going to save us. Putin's going to save the West. No, Putin's going to save Russia. Putin really cares about himself. And when you look at the current state of affairs in Russia, especially with the declining population, especially with the huge rise of alcoholism, especially with the huge rise of the destruction of the family unit, Russia's not doing that well. He's begging their people to have more babies. And when you look at their policies that they implemented within the last 3 years for the global flu that was going around, it doesn't speak of freedom and liberty. It doesn't speak of someone fighting the establishment and security state. It's someone who, of course, represents his country, his interests, and himself as well. And we need to make that clarification just so people don't jump on the bandwagon and think somehow that Vladimir Putin's going to come on a horse bare-chested here and save us here in the West, because he's not.
Picture.
I have seen that too online, Luke, and I think those people are totally deluded. It's just that they're so jaded because our political establishment is so obviously evil that they see Putin saying some like culturally conservative things and like, this is our hero. It's like, no, you got it all twisted. Like there are no good guys, but the reality is that the truth is somewhere in the middle. And if you only hear the Ukrainian argument, the Zelensky argument, well, you have no idea what's transpiring. Mm-hmm. Now, this is what I'm most pumped about, is that Tucker Carlson, in that little 4-minute clip saying what he's going to interview Putin about, he says, we're going to talk about the U.S. dollar and why the BRICS alliance is rising. This is really big, because the main thing that set off the BRICS alliance and made it expand, that has been adding to the inflationary pressures domestically with the U.S. dollar, was that, one, as soon as they invaded into Ukraine, they kicked them off of SWIFT, and they absconded with over $200 billion from their central bank. As soon as that happened, all of the other nations that had any of their currency sitting in U.S. dollars, sitting at other central banks in Europe, they all freaked, because they realized all of a sudden that, oh, the bank that I thought I was keeping my money with, it's whether or not it's solvent is not really the point, but it was basically like a bank run. All of these nations were like, we got to get out of the dollar. This is crazy. These dudes have lost their effing minds. And they're right. But the American people are going to pay the price, and it's really important that they understand why, that this was American foreign policy. It didn't have to happen. So I think that's a really good thing that could come from this.
People are correcting me in the chat saying Putin's not going to be on the horse. He's going to be on a bear.
Yes.
Coming in.
Okay, but can we talk about real quick, like one of the countries that does not accept gay people? He got on a horse looking like a whole ass gay person.
Yes.
Even when he's on a horse, he looks like a bear. You know what I mean?
That's true.
That's a
He's a bear.
very
He's an otter. We call him an otter.
Oh, he's an otter. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I had to.
I don't know how to respond to that, but good point. There's a lot of crazy videos and photos of Putin doing jujitsu, like being in the wilderness, fishing, and like running around with his bare chest as well, ice skating, playing hockey. and essentially being the MVP of his hockey league, as everyone literally is too afraid to check in.
I was gonna
and
say,
he's gaining like 10 goals a game. I
Maybe
don't know
he's
if
like
you've
the
seen that
only
video, but
player
holy
on
cow.
all of these teams.
Yeah.
He's like the only one running out there.
No, seriously. I bet those like hockey players are terrified.
Probably.
Absolutely freaking.
I would not want to play hockey against Putin. That'd be
No.
very scary.
All right, we still didn't finish the full video. Let's finish off the full video with Tucker Carlson.
At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied on our text messages and then leaked the contents to their servants in the news media. They did this in order to stop a Putin interview that we were planning. Last month, we're pretty certain they did exactly the same thing once again. But this time, we came to Moscow anyway. We are not here because we love Vladimir Putin. We are here because we love the United States, and we want it to remain prosperous and free. We paid for this trip ourselves. We took no money from any government or group, nor are we charging people to see the interview. It is not behind a paywall. Anyone can watch the entire thing, shot live to tape and unedited, on our website, tuckercarlson.com. Elon Musk, to his great credit, has promised not to suppress or block this interview once we post it on his platform, X, and we're grateful for that. Western governments, by contrast, will certainly do their best to censor this video on other less principled platforms because that's what they do. They are afraid of information they can't control. But you have no reason to be afraid of it. We are not encouraging you to agree with what Putin may say in this interview, but we are urging you to watch it. You should know as much as you can. And then, like a free citizen and not a slave, you can decide for yourself.
And that is absolutely terrifying for the people in charge that live and prosper on a bed of lies, as those lies are going to be exposed very soon. And right on for Tucker Carlson. I mean, the stuff that happened with his signal messages being hacked by the NSA, federal government's coming to him and saying, yeah, you're not going to do this interview with Vladimir Putin, and him saying, you know what? I'm just going to do it, is incredibly brave, incredibly ballsy. And this was the #1 news anchor in all of America that was fired without explanation. This is kind of a Guy Fawkes kind of moment here. If you remember V for Vendetta, there was always that one journalist sticking up, speaking out for everyone else. We are in like a V for Vendetta moment. And if you remember watching that movie, it's one accident and it's one incident. It's one thing that happened in the street that sparked off this huge kind of rebellion, this huge kind of dissatisfaction that has been building and building and building. And this is truly, I would say, one of the most exciting times to be alive.
Yes.
What's going to happen from here? Who knows? We could only hope that cooler heads prevail, that there is going to be a serious conversation, that there's going to be negotiations, that there is hopefully going to be peace, and a lot of this bloodshed, a lot of this conflict, a lot of this war could end with the power of words. Conflicts end once people stop supporting them. I think we're reaching that kind of crescendo moment during an election year where anything and everything could happen. I just hope everything happens for the benefit of humanity and we're not all blown up with nuclear missiles.
You and me both, brother. But this is an important thing to note too. If my memory serves, it was before Russia invaded that they were actually preventing Tucker Carlson from interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
So when they say that Putin invaded and it was unprovoked, that they had no idea it was coming, blah blah blah, ask yourself, why would they hack his text messaging if that's the case? Why would they not want an American journalist to be able to speak to him? prior to the invasion. Perhaps it's because he would have been able to explain that there is a lot of antagonism coming from the Biden administration when it comes to adding Ukraine into NATO. Could that have possibly been why they didn't want him to have that conversation? I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. And if you also remember, shortly after that, Fox News shelves Tucker, and that he was the number one guy in news. Like, why would you possibly do that? And I think the truth is that, you know, he was one of the journalists that forgot he had strings or decided to cut his own strings, started to tell the truth, and that's just not allowed on TV.
A lot of people on social media are saying Tucker Carlson will not be taking his own life.
Yeah, I've been seeing
and
that.
I'm seeing that in the comments, and I'm seeing it on social media. That's the severity of the situation, and that's not overplaying it. I would say that's underplaying it with the way that this establishment, this regime has been acting towards critical voices of them.
Yeah. Well, he covered his butt. He said a lot of things that he's like, we are not here because I like Tucker or I like Vladimir Putin. Like, he covered his butt on a lot of things, and just what we said. Everybody deserves to know exactly what's going on because we only know one side. We see this guy in this green sweater always showing up like a hoochie, like he wants money from us, and we never know why we're giving him money when we're not getting anything out of any of it. And then we get no response from Putin, so this is good for us. I want to know.
One of the theories that I heard, and I haven't been able to independently verify it, but one of the things that I've heard from some of the people I know that are paying attention to this situation more than I am and have their sources, they came out and they said, you know, Zelensky has essentially been threatened. His life is in jeopardy if he doesn't follow the rules and does what he is told to do.
By who?
So by the establishment that is truly calling the shots here. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would kind of make sense when you look at the larger kind of very bad moves he's making for his people and the life loss that has been significantly lost there. So that could be a probability that I think is worth considering here in all of this, as of course the response to Tucker Carlson even now is very tempered by a lot of establishment figures like Keith Olbermann that just came out and said in response to Tucker Carlson's video that we just played here for everyone, saying, because you're a, quote, Russian asset and an American thing we can't say here on YouTube. We get it. That's one response out of many responses. Of course, CNN had a meltdown on their national television show, and they were really not happy with the interview that, of course, Tucker Carlson's going to be releasing. Mike Cernovich had a very interesting take here. He said, quote, they are afraid of the Tucker interview with Putin because Americans were sold a lie about Ukraine. Many lies. It was all a lie. And, of course, Clint, you sent me a video showing NATO's own General Secretary flat out, quote, admitting that Putin invaded Ukraine because NATO refused to agree to stop expanding. And that's according to the video that Clint sent me here. It's a 1-minute video. I don't know if we should play it or not. But
his accent's really strong, but if people want to look it up, they can. It's true. It's like the Secretary General of the UN or whatever his title is, but like the top guy, and he's like, that's why it happened. And contrary to all of the narratives that the CNNs and the Fox Newses of the world will try and tell you that, you know, Putin's just a madman and he did it for no reason. There is a reason. It was very clear. There was leaked State Department cables to the now current head of the CIA, to Condoleezza Rice at the time, back in 2011-12, where they were saying, this is the reddest of red lines. You cannot put Ukraine into NATO. It is totally a non-starter for not just the Russian people, but also Putin. And yeah, this is they knew all the way along. I just want that to be very clear. They knew 100% and they wanted it to happen. This is the war that they wanted.
And if the shoe was on the other foot here, and let's just say Russia was expanding to, Costa Rica, Panama, and putting their nuclear weapons here, or in Cuba, which there's actual talk and consideration of them doing, the situation would be, of course, a lot different. And of course, we have this Newsweek article that just came out on February 5th, yesterday, specifically detailing how Russia vows to respond if U.S. sends nuclear weapons, as the United States is vowing to send nuclear weapons to the United Kingdom. Russia is saying if they do this, well, we're just going to send nuclear weapons to Cuba, as of course we're repeating history here that clearly hasn't been officially dealt with since the Soviet Union, since the 1960s. And once again, we're in a situation where a lot of people's lives are in danger, and at any moment and any time, we could have mutually assured destruction, which is ridiculous since, of course, nuclear weapons are just an outdated form of technology that are many decades old comparatively to the new weapons that they have that could probably be a lot more sinister and a lot more worse for humanity.
Luke, did you say Cuba? Do we need to start getting out of here?
I'm not going to Cuba. I don't like communists.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have just as good a chance of being invaded by America if you go to Cuba. Look, this is why communication is so important. I mean, it is not overstating it to say like these are the two most serious military arsenals on the planet. Whatever you think about Russia's capacity to beat us in a conventional war is really irrelevant. Obviously, they couldn't beat us in a conventional war. Certainly not in an invasion or something like that into the U.S. But yes, they absolutely have an arsenal that can wipe out all of humanity. So do we. We're playing chicken with every man, woman, and child's life. It's totally psychotic, and it's done at the behest or to the benefit of a bunch of really, really corrupt politicians that have been robbing you blind for decades. Your whatever level of fury that you hold within you is too little. You should be much more angry at what they've done to you, honestly.
And I think there's also a lot of serious discussion about the possibility of cyber attacks. There's, of course, Cyber Polygon that the World Economic Forum participated with the United States and Russia with, essentially simulating a larger cyber war on infrastructure all over the world. As, of course, we have this article by Politico that talks about how EU capitals are allegedly fearing that Russia will retaliate with cyber attacks after their assets were, of course, frozen. This says there has been a lot of very interesting conversations specifically about online digital warfare. Newsweek has another article talking about cyber attacks that have allegedly been thwarted that came back from China. And, of course, we have this article talking about the Houthis getting revenge by cutting off the fifth of the world's internet by going after world digital infrastructure with targeting fiber optic cables that lie only 100 meters inside of the ocean. Now, a lot of this talk, some people are saying it could be predictive programming. It could be getting people ready for actual sabotage events, for actual potential even false flag events, for events that maybe could be engineered, maybe could even be realistic. But when we look at the nuclear weapons, they are an outdated form of warfare. I think there's a new war that already exists that a lot of people aren't aware of. A war that's being fought with information, a war that's being fought with people being gaslit and manipulated to the point where they make decisions that are absolutely awful and detrimental to them without their knowledge or consent, as they're literally being led down a pathway of being extremely unhappy, being sterile, being an individual who, of course, won't have a strong family unit, being an individual who, of course, would be the perfect consumer with an ideology that is absolutely destructive towards oneself and its personal well-being. I think we are already engaged in different kind of online wars through the manipulation of algorithm, through the manipulation of information. But that is just my own conspiracy theory. And I don't know if you have a theory about what's going on here. But for me, the war has started. It's waging. Humanity is losing.
I agree with you 100%. We're already in war with social media platforms. I mean, it's way beyond just dropping a bomb over everybody. I mean, the bomb has already hit, in my opinion. So
it's an information bomb. It sucks, man. I mean, all that you really need to have a functioning society is to be able to speak to one another. And we have technologically, we have a better capacity to speak with one another all over the planet than we've ever had, ever. And it's not even close, like magnitudes better than even when I was born, magnitudes, multiples. But they can't allow it because the entire foundation of what we exist under is just total deceit. So if there's open communication, the lies come to the fore. their power structure fails, and that's the exact reason that they're censoring us everywhere.
Yep.
And that's why they're so pissed off that Tucker Carlson is daring to provide conversations that, of course, can't be controlled by them. Here's CNN literally flipping out on national television,
crying probably
in response
Really?
to this news. Not crying. They're not Rachel Maddow. They're not that in touch with their effeminate feelings.
It's like Trump won the presidency all over again.
Yeah. It's not Cenk during Trump's election, but here is this puppeteer puppeteering the lines from the corporate media establishment.
Set. A massive shakeup in Kyiv coming as Putin is trying to court the MAGA GOP in the United States. In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here with the MAGA leader Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson. Possibly there in Moscow to interview Putin. Definitely there as a Putin-supporting celebrity. Just listen.
Putin supporting celebrity, leader of MAGA. Holy cow. Just how much gaslighting do you need to introduce your segment that a journalist is actually going to be doing journalism? This is absolutely
How
ridiculous.
Russian state
MAGA
media is
5 times?
breathlessly
Yes.
celebrating his visit.
Independent journalist Tucker Carlson has flown to Russia from the U.S. via Turkey to Vnukovo Airport. He saw Spartacus Ballet at the Bolshoi Theater, had lunch in a nice restaurant, went for a ride around town, rode the subway. He charged his smartphone via a USB port and connected to a fast and free Wi-Fi internet.
Oh no.
Fast and free Wi-Fi. He charges you. But those are Russian state television reporting on his every single move. Which
He
was
charged his phone?
Yeah, he had dinner. Yeah.
They're people too.
He went to the ballet?
He
This
took
man
a
is
poo. Whoa. No, he moved his bowels at this.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Oh, goodness
It's
gracious,
embarrassing.
dude.
What do you guys think is going to be the response by the establishment here? Are they going to try to compromise him? Are they going to try to take him out? Are they going to ban him? Are they going to detain him at the border? What's next? What do you think is going to be happening from now on?
Man, I'll tell you, if they detain
thought
Tucker Carlson, it will be bad news.
Yeah, is that the straw that breaks the camel's back? Is Tucker Carlson the catalyst that puts us over the top where Americans come out of their house and like, we're done?
I would not be surprised if he gets detained at the border.
Yeah.
I got detained at the border a lot. It's not pleasant. And they have access to everything. They're like, okay, you're going to give us your phone, you're going to give us your cell phone, or you're not going to be let back into this country. We're going to go through every little thing. And then you're at the jeopardy of border control that could set you up, that could put anything into your product.
Detaining?
It's the Department of
What
Homeland
country?
Security
Yeah,
America?
and Border
Yeah,
Patrol.
USDHS.
Why would America detain an American for coming back to their own home country?
Just
Or
say
he
that
can-
out
Did you
loud.
just hear us this
Yeah.
whole first hour?
Like, just say that out loud one more time. You're like, oh.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, because he's over talking to our alleged arch
Because
enemy.
he's talking.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I swear to you, that's all it takes.
That's-
Look what they did to both Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. These people are evil, man. They'll do whatever. But I honestly think because he's so unbelievably popular, they can't. And so for that reason alone, they're trying to get out in front of it. They're trying to discredit him. They're trying to paint the narrative. This is all MAGA, 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 MAGA.
Yeah, I hate that they always say like that. The whole MAGA thing is such. I can't swear on YouTube, but
You will in just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
In 2 minutes,
So
you'll be able
here's
to
my
let
question.
it all out.
Here's my question before we go to all of the listeners: how long before they go after us type of people? Because I mean, once they get rid of Tucker Carlson, they get rid of all the big dogs.
You mean in terms of censorship, or you mean they actually come after us?
Oh yeah, no, come after people that are actually have credible shows that people listen to.
Look what happened to Alex.
Look what happened to Owen
Right.
Schroyer. Look what
Right.
happened to Julian Assange. Look what happened to all these other individuals who dared to speak out. And then when they did, they faced the fullest brunt of the intelligentsia state, deep state services that imprisoned them, ruined their lives, or put them in jail in solitary confinement. So they did that for a lot less than what Tucker Carlson is doing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot at stake here. I think he's going to be detained. I think they're going to try to censor this story. I think they're going to try to ignore this story, but they won't be able to. And then their next move, I think, is going to be unpredictable. That's just my call. We're going to see what happens. We're going to be following this story very closely. As, of course, right now I'm on tuckercarlson.com refreshing the page every so often, waiting for this interview to drop. As, of course, it's going to be free and on the top of their website. Coming soon. Tucker interviews Russian President Vladimir Putin. As, of course, a lot of people are saying, hey, Tuck, make sure you release this interview before you get on any other planes. And I hope they do that. I think they're smart. I think they know what's going on. So I think they will be doing that. So just shouts out to Tucker Carlson for being a real one, for being an individual who's willing to risk it all. I mean, this guy has a lot of money. This guy could easily retire. He's at the later stages of his life. He had his children, and he's still willing to risk it all to essentially try to bring more peace towards the world and bring more information to light that could essentially save a lot of people's lives, especially all the young people in Europe that are sacrificing the most, especially all the young Ukrainian men and all the young Russian men who are losing their lives because of politicians, which is absolutely a deranged thought. Again, if you're an individual fighting for politicians, that is absolutely insane. Let the politicians fight it themselves. Lindsey Graham, let's go. You want a war? Let's go. Let's send you off to Iran right now. Let's see what you can do there, buddy. As, of course, that's the way these conflicts should be handled. They're not, but those are the conversations that I think are the most important. Those conversations will be continuing in a more uncensored way on rumble.com/WeAreChange. Rumble.com/WeAreChange is the website right now where, of course, we will be going off on and continuing this larger conversation on. I'm trying to load the page right now. I've
got a lot to say that I haven't been able to say here, so please transfer over to Rumble so I can tell you the truth, because I've been biting my tongue the whole time. For real.
Conservative, hilarious, but a lot of the stuff he's not able to say here on this particular platform, and we look forward to, of course, him fully going off here. Clint, make sure the Rumble website works. If it's not working, it is working. Double check, Clint, because I'm having some problems with it. It could be my browser. We'll just make sure that we are going to be live. As, of course, we're going to be taking callers from members of LukeUnfiltered.com in about 30 minutes.
Even the app appears to be down.
It looks like there might be some problems. So I think we're going to be continuing the conversation on Twitter. Twitter.com/LukeWeAreChange and Rumble. We're going to still be live on Rumble, but Rumble has gone through a lot of cyber attacks. A lot of governments have tried to shut down Rumble.
Wonder why?
I wonder why. But it does really look like Rumble. I'm trying to load it right now.
I think it's down.
It's down.
People are there though. Like if you've been on it, it's working. But then if you try to go now, it might not work.
Is it down because
The
Tucker's about
website's
to
down.
drop it?
Well, I think Tucker might be using Rumble infrastructure for his website, tuckercarlson.com. As, of course, a lot of people do this. Tim Pool does this. I do this. Rumble's infrastructure is one of the safeguards against all the other online digital infrastructure out there that, of course, is very censorious. Amazon, Google, Alphabet, they censor a lot of stuff. So, yes, Rumble is down, so we won't be going to Rumble. Now we have to make a decision call here. Do we continue the conversation on YouTube? I think we might have to.
It's your call, brother.
And I think we might do a special members-only broadcast for Rumble later.
Yeah.
That's going to be not friendly at all. If you agree with that, conservative ant, if you're okay with that, continuing to speak in innuendos like we're in some kind of technocratic digital gulag. It's
a
not
bunch
fun.
of people are saying Rumble is good. Like they're all in the chat saying like we're here.
But I think it's because they were already there.
Yeah, that's
can't
my
load it.
assumption.
I can't load it. I can't load it.
But it's good as long as it's still working for those that are there. That means that it's at least being saved. So that's good.
Well, we have a bunch of other platforms. So, yeah, we're just going to, of course, continue the conversation here on YouTube and then do a kind of members-only short half-hour show where Conservative Ant gets to be Conservative Ant and then fully kind of let loose and give us his full, true, and honest self.
Well, let me say what I was going to say on Rumble, but say it as safely as possible. Just I'll just tell the audience, look it up. Look up Victoria Nuland on Capitol Hill approximately a year ago. I believe she was under cross-examination by Marco Rubio, where she acknowledges that there are facilities in Ukraine working on things that I can't talk about. But when you consider that there's this unbelievable like do or die mentality, if you've looked at the not just the Democrats but also some GOP politicians that have been tweeting out like, this is our time. Like if Ukraine falls, it's over. The entire world order crumbles. These people have an existential risk or an existential desire to defend Ukraine to the end of the earth, and you really need to ask yourself why. And I think once you watch that Victoria Nuland interview with Marco Rubio, you'll understand exactly why. And that's as clear as I can say it while we're still here. Sorry.
Well, I think we're going to be here for some people are saying it might just be Florida that Rumble is down. Some people it is working. Again, it's not working for me. I tried multiple browsers right now.
Me too.
And none of it opened up. But we are getting some Rumble rants as well. We got one from Jaywick 3000 saying Rumble app is alive and well. Luke, please forward this special number to Mr. Poole, 1-800-GAMBLER. Steph, what's your take on the border chaos? Yes, Steph. What's your take on the border chaos?
Oh, we can't go there because Steph talks too much.
Yeah, we can. You can totally go there.
They're paying money to get your opinion. You have to tell them.
Yeah, they're showering you with.
These are our customers.
I'm being paid to push buttons.
You have a microphone.
We got another Rumble rant by Bill Dozer 74 saying, "So how about that mentally defunct jury in Michigan," again, family-friendly show here, "finding Crumbly's mother guilty of involuntary manslaughter today? The absolute state of the system is driving me towards anarchy. To be honest, I haven't heard about
what's
Crumbly's mother.
Who's
case.
Crumbly?
I have no idea who Crumbly
I don't know.
is or what that situation.
But I like that you're being driven towards anarchy. Welcome, brother.
This is the way.
The
this
Tucker
is the way
thing's going
forward.
to put them over the edge.
Yeah, dude. It should. I
Yeah.
mean, we're living under such overt corruption. It's really jaw-dropping. And this is coming from a lifetime libertarian who could not believe how corrupt things were just in the War on Terror in the 01 through 09 period with the bailouts of the banking industry. It's like it was so corrupt when I was growing up, and now it's just like in your face. Like they just are trying to destroy everything.
I will say something about the border. Can I say something about the border?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so this is where people need to Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever you want to be. I don't care. You should see the corruption when you are living in a city where you can't send your kids to school because they are putting illegals in the school. So now you're stuck at home and your kids can't go to their high school because they have to put illegals in there and then give them money while you're broke. Okay? So if that doesn't make you mad and the Tucker thing makes you mad, maybe reverse back to the first thing.
Yeah, maybe your priorities
Let's play
aren't
Uno
straight
real quick.
there.
Reverse. Let's go back to the border real quick, okay?
It's wild. I mean, but it's like the foreign policy stuff is existential too. Then you have the U.S. dollar stuff that's existential. Then you have the fact that kids can't even go to their public schools. It's like it just feels like everything's crumbling. I'm sorry, that's what it feels like.
I think it's deliberate. I think it's supposed to be crumbling. I think the people in charge want it to crumble. They want it to get worse because if you look at every single action that they're taking, especially when it comes to censoring people, destroying people's ability to talk to each other to find out what's really going on here, what other conclusion can you come to other than they're deliberately trying to destroy the United States from within, from inside, and I think that's exactly what is happening here. There's no freaking denying it, and we're essentially being ruled by sociopaths that like to go on private islands with little babies on them and do unspeakable, horrible stuff that is absolutely sick and disgusting. Those are the individuals that are telling you how to live your life. Those are the individuals taking 30% of your paycheck and then giving it off to, of course, their buddies that fly with them on those private jets to those private islands, doing those horrible, unspeakable things that they will never be held accountable for, which is just absolutely infuriating.
I think that people, tax season is here, and I think some people are really starting to realize that they're having to owe money. We're like, wait a minute. I owe you money? What? can I be Ukraine? Like, what is going on here? Where's the guy in the green hoodie? I want money too. Yeah, I mean, on top of that, and I think Gen Z is waking up a little bit too, because now they're like, what do you mean my rent just went up another $650? I was barely making it on ramen and paying my rent last year. Yep. And so it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I really do hope that the thing that can unite us is being fed up with all the government crap.
I would hope, man. It's like we're risking potential world war while also risking a global depression, and you already have such cultural divide because they've pitted us against us based off our sexuality, our race, everything else. And it's like just 15 years ago, like that, all those issues were so minimal compared to how they feel today. It's really startling how much the shift has happened. But I agree with you that like if there's one thing that we ought to unify around, it should be our exasperation.
Yeah.
So it looks like Rumble is working. We're going to go over to Rumble. We're on the front page of Rumble. We're on their picks page. So
Let's go.
We're going to be leaving now.
My mad face.
It's getting all the boys in the yard.
It's that kind of stuff. I didn't know that.
I have some very interesting comments that I can't read here on YouTube that I really want to read on Rumble. So we're going to be leaving Twitter. We're going to be leaving Kick. We're going to be leaving Facebook. We're going to be leaving YouTube. Predominantly, we are now going to be having that conversation on rumble.com. Go on there. We're on the front page. We're next to Tucker Carlson and his Zyn. That, by the way, is filled with aspartame. I told Tucker about this. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you taking aspartame? He changed that up a lot. Lots of things that we're going to be talking about all on rumble.com/WeAreChange. Go there right now if you haven't. And the conversation definitely is going to get a lot spicier.
There's 5,000 people over there right now. Let's go.
Conservative for the YouTube audience and the Twitter audience and the Facebook audience and the Kick audience. Where can people find out more information about you before we switch over and actually have a platform that allows free speech?
Conservative Ant on all platforms. It's super easy to find me everywhere. I know some people don't do TikTok, but I was big on TikTok, and then I got taken down, and I'm still on TikTok. So Conservative Ant everywhere. You can find me very easily.
At Liberty Lockpod on X. If you want to support my work, you can subscribe to me there. I'll follow you back. And Liberty Lockdown's the show. Got a new episode dropping tonight with Chris Martinson that is an absolute jaw-dropping interview, but it will only be on Rumble. I cannot put it on YouTube. There's absolutely no way. But just trust me when I tell you, you don't want to miss it. Subscribe to Liberty Lockdown. And Tower Gang 2, but don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, we're working on getting Chris Martinson here in studio and to stay with us and to set up a permaculture, sustainable little farm here on the Best Political Show Residence. So we're going to do, I think we're going to be doing a knowledge exchange with Chris Martinson. We already talked about this. We just got to set up a date. He's going to come here. He's going to stay with us. He's going to teach us how to do permaculture and how to grow our own stuff. And we're going to teach him live streaming and Rumble stuff. So Chris, I disagree with some of his ideas, especially when it comes to peak oil, but overall, incredible guy, super smart, and I'm super excited to be sharing more information with him and maybe even potentially